Nancy Cheng, thank you for coming on ThinkTech.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jay,
It's
for
great
having
to
me
have
here.
you here. You are a Hawaii lover, yeah?
Yes, I love Hawaii. I think it's a great state with a great potential, and I hope in the future it will be greater.
Yeah, okay. We want to talk about all of that. So you live in Chicago because you work in Chicago for an architect engineer firm in Chicago, even though you're qualified to do global things. So tell us about all the degrees you have, Nancy.
Um, thank you, Jay. By the way, I have a, Bachelor of Science in Engineering from Zhejiang University.
Doesn't everybody?
Thank you, Jay. Which is near Shanghai, China, an MBA from Baylor University in Texas, and a master's degree in international affairs from Columbia University in New York.
Oh, that's wonderful. You are well-rounded, Nancy.
Thank you very much, Jay.
And now you travel hither and yon on projects for an architect engineer firm in Chicago. And you're out here now in the month of September, in part for our program on recovery and transformation of the Hawaii economy, yeah?
I'm excited. Jay, thank you for doing that for the state and also for future generations of Hawaii. This is great. I mean, it's very timely.
Yeah, we think so. And we are going to be delighted to see you down there along with a couple of hundred other people. It's going to be a very interesting program. Everybody is signing up now, and we're putting it together, and in a couple of weeks we'll have it.
That's great.
So I wanted to get your thinking, though, based on your travel and experience, in China where you originally got trained and in the U.S. where you learned a lot more. I'd like to know your thoughts about Hawaii because you're a Hawaiianophile.
Thank you.
And you read a lot about Hawaii and you travel here 2 or 3 times a year just because you feel this is a special place.
Yes.
So I'd like to know, well, first, why do you feel that Hawaii is a special place?
The first time I learned this beautiful phrase, actually when I was a kid back in Fujian, southern China.
This is near Taiwan.
Near Taiwan. It's actually right across Taiwan Street. It's another strategic location, so to
think
speak.
so.
Local folks all say, oh, Hawaii is beautiful. We wish we could go there. So as I had a chance to go on for higher learning, I tried to find as much information on Hawaii as possible. And I said, wow, the weather is great. And the people, are lovely, beautiful. How can I, go there? And my late father actually at the time told me, Nancy, just study hard. You can do whatever you like if you put your mind to it. So, luckily, I listened. So I think, I kind of realized, part of my dream. Speaking of building a great Hawaii, my personal thoughts, perhaps we need to get infrastructure or update infrastructure first and foremost. For example, perhaps we really could build some, high-tech railroads that would increase the volume of visitors and also will attract more attention worldwide. So people will view Hawaii as not just another beautiful place, another tourist destination, but a place for mind, for research, high-tech, regular tech, and also perhaps for medical treatments, and so to speak. So I think there are a lot of things that can be done in those areas, and as a result, it would definitely provide a lot of jobs, not just in basic research but also in advanced research, and along the road, we will also bring more thinking people to this beautiful place. So here's just my personal thoughts.
Okay, well, let's explore that. Those are all ideas that have been discussed and certainly would be very beneficial if they were executed. But do you have a sense about why they don't happen now? What stands in the way?
I guess with any human beings, when you are at the perfect place, with perfect weather and everything seems to be perfect, you don't feel a sense of urgency. And if I were, for example, born here, I probably would not have thought about, doing something, say, beyond my birthplace, because, everything is so perfect. Why bother, so to speak? And my sense, just in comparison to I would say, the learning institutions I have experienced in China, I think there is perhaps a lack of energy or maybe of imagination in terms of what we could do for future generations. For example, maybe we should, ask kids, to imagine more, to learn more, and to do more for their home state, instead of, for example, they just, okay, let's get an education. Maybe, I can find a job with a tourist, company. Nothing wrong about that. It's great, for some people. Perhaps, they can do more than that. They may just, get higher learning somewhere on the mainland and come back and build a better home state. So I think in terms of infrastructure in terms of, educational infrastructure, perhaps, we could do more for kids so that, the best and brightest stay in this beautiful state.
That's a great idea. There's a mentoring organization that was established a few years ago by a philanthropist in Hawaii, and you can get grants from them. They will help you. They will mentor you. They will help you build your business. And there's only one condition.
Yes.
You have to mentor someone else.
This is great. This is great chain reaction.
Yeah, exactly. It goes down the generations. So I think that's a wonderful idea, but I think you have to find a way to get people to buy in, because on balance these days it seems like everyone is into self-interest, not for the best of the community, for the common good, but for their own interest. And you have to get them off that. You have to get them to appreciate their obligation to the community. How do you do that?
That's a great question, Jay. I think the public servants, in my opinion, and all the state officials should take leadership roles in building a better state. It's not that they say or promise a lot of things to people before the election. They should, as you mentioned, should better execute their promise, and really put their hearts and minds into building a better state. So I think it is very important for Hawaiian people and also for people who love Hawaii to pay great attention to what these candidates would do after they get elected. I think we as citizens should hold them accountable for what they have promised and also for what they should do for the people of Hawaii. So I think going back to education, I think we should get the people to become educated in the election process so that they can choose the right governor. Just use it as an example to help them in this process. Otherwise, it will be a waste of time, and it will be perhaps a waste of, some natural resources.
So let's examine that for a minute, okay?
Okay.
I want to test on that theory. Suppose you have a whole bunch of candidates who don't understand what we're talking about. What do you do? How do you make them understand?
I think this is a challenging process. I think let's hope these candidates really have their hearts and minds focus on the state of Hawaii, also focus on the challenges faced by this beautiful Aloha state, and get them to tour around the state to see how real life people live. Because these people have jobs, some people may not have jobs, or their children in the future may not have a better job because of global competition as we know it. So I think it's better to get them out of the office, not just on the campaign trail. Get them in the field to listen to people, to see what they can do for the people.
This old-fashioned campaigning, doesn't happen so much anymore. I mean, now everything's driven by television. So you get money from some big donors, and you wait until the critical moment, the strategic moment. Then you spend tons of money on television, and you never walk door to door. Not in a gubernatorial race. You never walk door to door. You never go out and say hi to individual people, especially on the neighbor islands. And I agree with you. I think we lose something by not doing that, because then people can tell the candidate what they want, and he can, at least to some extent, he can understand what they expect of him. Otherwise, it's a one-way conversation. He's telling them what he can do for them, and he doesn't really hear much about what they're saying to him.
Correct.
So we've got to fix that. And then, of course, you run the risk, and here's another question for you.
Yes. You
run the risk of having one candidate, say a particular candidate, understand about the common good. And he understands, what people have to do, what he has to do to make it better, except he loses.
It happens.
It happens.
Especially in politics, right?
It happens. And then you get, you can get somebody who wins the election, but he doesn't understand. And now you have no leverage there, or very little anyway.
That's possible. I think, as with everything else, we take a chance in life. But I think here's a moment we need to seize. Here's a moment that I think we as a citizen can make a difference, hopefully for a better Hawaii. So I think, we deserve a better governance.
Well, is it all dependent on that? Suppose I decide, government is nice, but I have no confidence in it anymore. Suppose I do. And there are people who have decided this, if you walk door to door, every so often you run into somebody who says, don't talk to me. I'm finished with government. I don't want any government.
Yeah. I'm tired
of it. So, but let's assume that you are finished with government and you really don't have any confidence in it, but you still want to make Hawaii a better place. And you still believe in the common good. You still have a kind of patriotism to Hawaii. I think that's what you're talking about. It's a person's relationship with the state, seeing the state as a special place, worthy of special, and you recognize that you need to contribute, or it won't remain a special place. Right. So what do you do then if the government isn't helping you, or you have no confidence in the government? If the elected officials don't understand about this, but you nevertheless want to improve the place and make for greater good, what do you do?
There are many things I think I can do. For example, go to ThinkTech, Recovery Transformation Forum. You will see the business leaders, community activists, and perhaps educational professionals who cared about the state of Hawaii, to listen to their ideas, to talk to them, to see how things get done really in real life. And then together, I think we can make a small difference. A bit by bit, gradually, people together can push the government to make a change, make them listen to the people. So I think there should be a coalition for a better Hawaii. So a place to go, of course, to talk to people like you who cares about Hawaii. And secondly, do what they can. For example, make a small difference in everyday life. I know it's easy, sometimes just to say that than to actually do it. Go out, maybe, to talk to the university or colleges to see if there are any project that might be, commercialized, someday has potential. That would be good for state, One of the things I would think of is, get this, state to be independent of the oil, almost 100% oil, dependence. and make these things priority, for their lives. So I think there are a lot of things, one can do in making a better state. You don't have to, to depend on the government, with regard to these projects. These are projects perhaps, they can be done by real people.
Yeah, working together.
Yes.
So now my next question is, how do you work together? I mean, I suppose you and I are of like mind on this.
Thank you.
I'm happy about that. And so we should work together, and we should find other people who feel the same way. We should form an alliance, a coalition, or something, and we should work on that. We should maybe ThinkTech Hawaii, who knows? And we should work for the greater good. And it doesn't matter whether the government is actually leading the charge.
Right.
We're going to go down that road no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is good. So it's a model. You want government to do it first because it's easier that way.
Right, because supposedly the infrastructure is there to a certain degree.
Government is infrastructure, yes.
Right. Should be for the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I remember, my limited training about, the culture in China. The people always reserve the right to overthrow the government if it's not doing a good job, right?
Yes, yes. And China has changed a lot. To a certain degree, I think we can learn a lot from contemporary China. I understand that in some people's minds, China could be red, could be scary, because, as human beings, we always have a certain degree of fear of unknown. So I think, ideally, if people can go and visit China to see for themselves, that would be a very educational thing. However, not everybody can take off, to China, within a year or perhaps, in the future. But just, go to a library and find a book, there are many good books, about China there. I personally prefer, the books about China written by Thomas Friedman, as you probably
sure.
know, the New York Times columnist.
Yeah.
Along the way, he wrote a lot of great articles regarding globalization, regarding China, and other topics as well. So I think people, should view learning as a lifelong process, and then in the process, they can make up their minds for themselves. They don't have to be dependent, on the government. Government is there, as you mentioned, as an infrastructure to a certain degree, and people, should be able to make life better for themselves.
People should have control over government. Government should work for the people.
Ideally.
Ideally, it doesn't always happen that way, but it could happen that way. It's not that hard to do it. It's just a matter of the mindset of the leaders and the people. If they agree on that, government will work well.
Yes.
So you touch on a point, this is an interesting discussion actually for me. You touch on a point that I think is really critical, and I want to talk about it with you because I know you have thoughts about it, and that is globalism. China, you could say you can read a book about China and understand China, but in my opinion, you have to go there. You'll not feel the energy.
Yeah.
And the minute you get off the airplane or off the ship or whatever, you will feel the energy in China, the vitality, and it will blow you away.
Yes.
It happens to everybody, and it happened to me, of course. So the question is, what can we learn from China about looking at the world from a global point of view? What can Hawaii learn about globalism?
I think it's very important for people of Hawaii, and perhaps even more important for the kids of Hawaii, to learn about how the people, and especially kids, are educated in schools. For example, even back then, when I grew up, there was still, to a certain degree, the communists or socialists in China, but we were taught about the world beyond China, about the history of Europe, and the history of the United States. I don't think it's necessary in school. In Hawaii, in every school, to teach kids about the history of China or the contemporary happenings of China, to see, to live oneself out of a place, so to speak, beyond localism, for lack of a better term, beyond nationalism. So I think we can learn a lot about how the best and brightest minds were educated in China. And the other thing I can think of is the length of education. I understand in schools in Hawaii or in other states on the mainland as well have a long period of quote-unquote non-learning days, because of vacation. I mean, it's good. I think during this vacation time, the kids should still be educated, either at home or perhaps by other, institutions, so that a better minds can be built. The kids will have a better or a wholesome worldview, so to speak. It's not like, this is what's going on in my neighborhood. It's good, I mean, for a kid to care about his or her own neighborhood, but I think the kids should dream bigger dreams, so to speak.
So there are some dichotomies I want to explore with you. Number one, you're talking about a global view that is a social science point of view, historical, it's a philosophical point of view, it is a humanity point of view, and yet in China and for you, engineering. So engineering is down here in little pieces, little concrete, rules of nature, laws of nature. You're talking about the laws of humanity, which are an art, not a science.
Right. It's not.
So how do you put that together?
Indeed, they are contrasts. However, I think because we have left brain and right brain, I think it still can work beautifully inside one's mind. I believe people have more capacities, intellectually speaking, than we realize. So I think they are not necessarily, the opposite of the things. I think sometimes they help people to see things better. China, these days, as you probably know, is run by very competent engineers. Look at the top level.
All
engineers. Engineers, and engineers from the top school like Tsinghua universities. The 3 out of the 12, the highest level leadership in China, actually graduated from Tsinghua University, just like the equivalent of MIT of the States. So I think, and these days, as you know, they are not necessarily engineers running the details of the electronic components. They run the country. Again, going back to the humanities, they think about the future of the people. What will be in their best interest? How to manage a country so that hopefully a better future will come along. So I think these 2 different things can be reconciled within the human brain.
Okay, another dichotomy. See if you can reconcile it. In order to feel good about Hawaii, in order to want to improve Hawaii, and to I have to love Hawaii. I have to see Hawaii as a special place, different from all other places. Yes. that draws me to it, that distinguishes itself and makes it, mine. So I love Hawaii. Yes. All the things about it. At the same time, we talk about globalism, and we say that you've got to be aware of everything going on everywhere. You've got to be alert to the entire world. So how can you do both? How aren't you going to be all confused if you go both directions at the same time?
Not necessarily so, if I may say. I agree with you. It seemed to me there's of standing at the opposite of being globalist, so to speak, or being the localist, living the daily life. I think when people conduct their daily lives, of course they live locally, but they can think globally. People know these days the competition is not from the neighbor anymore. They can come from India. Like great engineers from India, or financial advisors from London or other places, so they can think for themselves globally. So in other words, the global mindset help them to be a better local citizen in a way. And also on the other hand, when they conduct their local, if I may use the term, daily life or business, they can also in the process help see the global impact. Sometimes, as we know, when you build a great green place in Hawaii locally, and you will attract a lot of interesting people, a great mind to the great state here. So it doesn't necessarily to be the crazy contrast, so people don't know whether I should focus on the globalization or my local business. So I think they can be reconciled as well.
And for you, who cares so much about Hawaii, who understands it really, I must say I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Why don't you live here?
That's a great question. I would love to become a full-time resident of Hawaii, and at this point, there are more projects available to me on the mainland of the States than in Hawaii. But as time goes by, I would love to live here full-time, building a better state. But one thing sure, someday in the future, when I retire, I will do a volunteering job teaching kids about the Chinese culture. That's for sure.
Oh, gee whiz. Well, I hope you come back more and more frequently, and I hope you have the opportunity soon to teach those kids. It really touches me. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much for coming on our show.
My pleasure.
Wonderful
Thank you, Jay.
discussion. Aloha.
Aloha. 谢谢。
Bukachi.
谢谢。